Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Drax. However, you may be wondering why am I looking so sophisticated. You see, I'm just matching the theme because chess is indeed a complex game. People have really difficult times navigating through it, and sometimes they don't even know where to begin with. And so today, I'm going to help you with that. I've collected 5 best chess openings for beginners that will allow you to play much better in the beginning. So without further ado, let's begin.
Scandinavian Defense. With it, you'll be able to surprise your opponents from the get-go and not let them have their way in the opening repertoire. It's bold, it's direct, and it will make your opponents think twice about their opening plans or repertoire. Scandinavian Defense starts with pawn to e4 by white, to which black immediately responds to pawn d5. What's awesome about the Scandinavian Defense is that it's all about seizing the initiative. You challenge the central pawn right away, forcing white to react. And what's the best part? When you play black pieces, your queen comes out pretty early, because in the opening, after black pawn to d5, white usually responds to pawn d5, after which you play queen d5, capturing the pawn. And this allows you to quickly activate your queen on the third move of the game. Plus, it's a great way to avoid the well-known opening theory of more traditional moves. But there's a catch. Bringing out your queen early can lead to her becoming a target, especially after knight c3. If you're not careful, your opponent can develop pieces quickly and force you to move your queen around, losing precious tempo. It requires a bit of finesse to make sure that you don't get too defensive after that early exchange. But it's also important not to get too aggressive after the opening, because then you might lose your tempo once again. My best advice: if you're looking for something straightforward that lets you play aggressively from the start, the Scandinavian Defense is an excellent choice. Just make sure to keep an eye on your queen and what your opponent does. French Defense and Caro-Kann Defense. Next, let's talk about the 2 most solid defenses out there, the French Defense and the Caro-Kann. Both of these openings conclude with e4 by white, but then they take different approaches. Let's look at French Defense first. The French starts with e4 and black plays e6. The French Defense is all about the resilience. When you play e4, e6, you're preparing yourself to strike back at the white center, especially with the move d5. It's a great choice when playing like this in long term. Solid pawn structure and plenty of room to maneuver with your pieces. You can even choose the aggressive variations like the advance or tirage. Although I personally like to play Ortho-Schnapp Gambit, which goes through the Steiner variation. So here's how to play the Ortho-Schnapp Gambit. First of all, white plays with e4 and black responds with e6. But instead of d4, next up you play c4. And after a move d5, with the c-pawn you take the d-pawn, and after that black recaptures. Then you move your queen to c4, which is the Ortho-Schnapp Gambit. However, if you were to ask me which one to play the advance or just the main line. That would be the better thing to do. On the other hand, the Caro-Kann Defense, which is e4 c6, is all about stability. Black immediately prepares to challenge white's position with center d5, but unlike French Defense, is typically more solid. It's less about the immediate counterplay and more about building up strong position with Caro-Kann, and it allows to develop pieces more smoothly without any risk whatsoever. However, it requires more practice on the other hand, so make sure that you learn your variation, especially considering that there are so many different variations of Caro-Kann that are just great. Advance, exchange, Tartakawa, also known as fantasy, tile variation, and so many more. However, this all comes at cost. It's a bit more passive, especially in the early game, and you might give up the initiative to your opponent, and if white is aggressive, it can be hard to fight back. My best advice: so if you prefer being a bit more of a straightforward player in counter-attacking style, go for Caro-Kann. But if you want to add a bit more complexity, and you're okay with a crammed bishop, the French Defense is a solid pick. Scotch game. Moving on, let's look at the Scotch game. This opening is all about the simplicity and control. The Scotch begins with e4, e5, followed by knight f3 and knight c6. And then it's d4 by white. It's not as famous as Ruy Lopez or Italian Game or Caro-Kann, but it's a gem for the beginners who want to get straight into the middle game without much theory. What I love about the Scotch opening is this super straightforwardness. You're challenging white's center early on, and your pieces are usually well coordinated and developed. It's a solid opening, and you learn a lot about piece development, especially when it comes to controlling the center. However, it can sometimes lead to symmetrical positions, which some players find really boring. And if you're up against a strong opponent, then this might end up to neutralizing your early advantages. It also requires careful planning. While it is solid, it doesn't always lead to explosive positions, and it's all about the patience about the Scotch game. And so my best advice for Scotch: go for it only if you like simplicity, solid development, and patient development. It's a great opening for the players who want no-nonsense approach to controlling the center. Ruy Lopez and Italian Game. Now let's dive into 2 legendary openings, Ruy Lopez, also known as the Spanish opening, and the Italian Game. These are often referred together as the classic openings. Both start with same way, e4, e5, knight c3, knight f6, similar to Scotch. But after that, white has 2 options, Ruy Lopez, which is bishop to b5, or Italian game, bishop to b4. Let's compare the two. We'll start off with Ruy Lopez. The Spanish is a highly strategic opening. White develops bishop to b5, attacking the black knight on c6, putting pressure on the center. It's a great choice if you want a position that offers both attack and defense. There are many deep variations, including the Berlin defense and the Morphy defense, so you'll never run out of options to explore. Or you can follow the main line simply. Beginners can get lost in the numerous amount of variations, and it requires quite a bit of time to study and play effectively. On the flip side, the Italian game is more about rapid piece development. The move bishop to c4 targets black's f7 square, which is weak in that opening stage, putting immediate pressure on the king side. It's more aggressive opening and less theory heavy than Ruy Lopez, which makes a great option for beginners who want to play it actively. However, the Italian game can lead to slower maneuvering positions, so if black plays well, you might struggle with converting your initiative into a decisive advantage. My best advice: both openings are great, but they suit different styles. Ruy Lopez is perfect for those who love deep strategy and are willing to learn more theory. Italian game is great if you want something more straightforward with a bit of early aggression that will allow you to hop straight into the game. Lastly, let's look at the Vienna game and the Vienna Gambit. The Vienna game begins with e4, e5 and then knight to c3. And it can lead to some really sharp play, especially if you go for the Vienna Gambit with pawn to f4 as white. The Vienna game is less common but highly effective. I rarely got to see it in the rating of sub 700, which is where all the beginners are, but I see it more of like close to the intermediate level, so over 700 to like 1200 and 1300. The Vienna allows for fast attack, and you can catch your opponent off guard very easily if they do one mistake. However, it's not the faint of heart. The Vienna Gambit requires precise knowledge of the lines, and you can leave yourself exposed if things go wrong. So if you don't know the theory well, you might lose the advantage you gain from the Gambit. And also remember to keep an eye on the opponent developing so that you know which move to take next. My best advice: play the Vienna if you want to spice up your openings, and yeah, okay with a little bit of risk. It's an opening that rewards study, but also can lead to some exciting positions. There you have it. That's 5 fantastic openings for beginners. Whether you want simplicity, control, or an exciting gambit, or just something straightforward, these choices are necessary for you, and if you want to become a better chess player, I suggest learning one of these 5 at least. Thank you very much for watching this video. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel since it will help it grow, and I'll much appreciate it. Thank you and have a great day. That was Drax in the studio.